I figure that I should offer one more video commentary on what's going on with Stranger Things Season 5. I realize this isn't a subject that interests all of you, and if you aren't interested, that's fine. Just don't watch the video. But if you are interested, then I beg your indulgence because I don't know. Uh, I'm going to be as succinct as possible, but I don't know how long this will take. So put it on 1.5 speed and just indulge me if you can possibly do so. Well, there was all the talk about conformity gate, and I was really interested in it. I have to admit, when I went to the movie theater to see the conclusion of season 5, the final episode of season 5 at the movies, and I got some shit from some of you about that. But I don't care. Yeah, y'all can do what you want. Um, I felt like going just because it seemed like an event that I was interested in I don't know, taking in. Um, as I said before, I think Stranger Things is probably the last franchise that will unite America, that all of America will watch. Not all. When I say all, I don't, of course, mean literally all, but but that something that you don't have to be a particular faction of American to like or enjoy. And with the way that we're becoming more and more divided as a country and as a culture, I thought there was something poetic and poignant about being there for this final event. And I admit at the time, you can go back and watch my video where I commented on being there at the movie theater and commented on my thoughts afterwards. I was more or less okay with the final episode. Um, at my immediate thoughts were not overly critical. Um, but obviously, there's been a lot of uh, dissatisfaction with season 5, and I can understand it. Even though I didn't feel as strongly about it, maybe because I'm more lukewarm about the whole franchise. I'm interested enough that I've watched every episode of every season, so I guess that makes me a fan. But I'm not uh, riveted enough to have it be something that I make a part of my life or part of my identity or anything like that. Um, so so yeah, you had conformity gate, all right, and I was really fascinated by conformity gate. I thought it was really an interesting idea, and I saw the arguments for it, and I thought the arguments made sense. That there were things in that finale, particularly, that didn't. I didn't think. I have to admit, I didn't think of any of those things at the time. But afterwards, hearing what people had to say about why this was there, why that was there, this didn't make sense. This plot hole was never filled, and so forth and so on. I thought, yeah, there's something to that. Maybe the and what I was leaning more towards less that I was really dubious about that there was a secret final episode where we'd find out the truth, that the happy ending wasn't really happy, and that the bad guys actually won. Um, I sort of was more riveted by the idea that, esoterically speaking, if you pay attention to details, that's the true meaning of the final episode, that it's actually not the happy ending that you think it is. And I thought that was just a cool idea. But it's like most esoteric. If you have a work with an esoteric meaning, you have the obvious meaning, the surface meaning, and then the more esoteric meaning that maybe is something that not everybody's going to get, but that it's actually there to get for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. That I thought it would just sort of exist in that way. But most of the people who were pushing conformity gate, most of them are young people. Okay, that's one thing. And I don't know if that matters much or not, but maybe when you're young, you just want there to be more. You want to have. It's not enough to just have this theory be, out there to be interpreted. You want to see something that concretely confirms this esoteric interpretation, and then it ceases to be esoteric anymore, right? Which kind of takes the stinger out of the bee, if you will, because then that makes that makes it clear for everyone. And the point is, with a more with a hidden meaning, with an esoteric meaning, the point is that it's there for those who can see it. But if you can't see it, if you just watch on a more surface level, then you don't see it. But nevertheless, when the secret episode never dropped, there was a lot of consternation, a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth over that. And then the Stranger Things season 5 documentary came out on January 12th, which was supposed to. There were all these reasons, like people were reading into why this particular date was going to be. They thought it was going to be the episode was going to drop on the 7th because of this, that, or the other thing. And sometimes you can read too deeply into things, or sometimes you can misinterpret things and think that it means something, concrete, just like the QAnon people thinking all the things that they were thinking in 2020, that John F. Kennedy Jr. was going to reveal himself as the, as not having died, and was going to become Trump's running mate, and all this wild and crazy stuff that the QAnon people were theorizing, none of which was true. But anyway, so you had a lot of consternation over there not being an episode 9, a secret episode that drops after the supposed finale. And then you had the making of documentary, which, if you've seen it, is there are places in it where you are astounded by the kind of things that it reveals about the Duffer brothers and about their seeming incompetence. And I'd never really seen anything featuring them before. I just knew them by name as the creators of this show. And I knew they had worked with M. Night Shyamalan on Wayward Falls, which I thought was an underrated show. That came out a few years ago. Really weird, crazy show um, that was underrated. So I kind of thought these guys are obviously clever. They're smart. They know what they're doing. But when I saw them in this documentary, they seemed like they were in over their heads. They seemed like they seemed shell shocked. Uh, they didn't really seem to know much of what was going on. They admitted that they hadn't finished the script for the finale. That they were still working on the script. So all of the crew, all of the people making the sets and everything, these elaborate sets, had to just were waiting on tether hooks, to see what exactly they were going to be asked to do, um, which is pretty funny. Uh, and and so what you see in this documentary, and it really it tears the mask off in a lot of ways. People complained about how in the final battle was too easy, that they killed Vecna too easily, um, and that was one of the reasons why they thought Vecna was really still alive, because of course you couldn't have killed him that easy. Um, given his immense powers and everything, and there were people. They were sitting in the room with the writers of the show, and one of the writers actually said, I don't think we can have a final battle without there being dogs and demogorgons and demobats, or whatever, all of the minions, all of the evil minions who come to Vecna's aid and the Mind Flayer's aid. We can't just leave them out of the final battle. That would just be a real letdown for the audience. And then they cut to one of the Duffer brothers just sitting there, just looking. Again, just an empty look on his face, like he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And it was like, yeah. And of course, what they did was omitted all of the demogorgons and all of the things that would have made the battle more spectacular. They decided to omit all of that, and it's something that people complained about. And this this so in the documentary, you see how one of the writers is saying, you can't just do that. You can't. That'll be terrible. That'll really that'll be shitty if we end it that way. And the Duffer Brothers just sort of, well, nah. They don't even argue really back. Uh, they just say no. Well, that's the really interesting thing about the documentary. Of course, there are moments where you see the cast, interacting, and the crew interacting, and there's some genuine emotion being expressed, and those scenes are interesting to watch, and are kind of emotionally uh, moving, because there's you just because these people have a lot tied up in this project, and it made me think about how movie making, or uh, what in this case, making whatever Netflix is it movies, is it TV, um, you know that film, let's just say film, is a collaborative process, just like theater is a collaborative process. And to speak personally for a moment, I did some theater when I was younger, and thought about getting into the film biz for a little bit when I was college age, and opted not to. And now I'm a writer instead, a little known writer, uh, and you know, the writing is a very solitary enterprise, and one of the things that you miss out on is the collaborative spirit. Uh, the it can be frustrating to work with others, especially if you don't get along or if you don't see things the same way, um, or whatever. But there's also this, um, you know, it you feel like you're in this project with some other people, and they sort of, you form a bond with them, you know, and they become co-collaborators, and they become, in a way, your allies, and it's like, I don't want to overstate the metaphor here, but the same way you'd feel going into war, I would imagine, if you had, a squadron of guys that you were going to war with. They may not be guys that you would hang out with normally, but uh, but in this experience of this harrowing experience of war, this challenging experience of war, you bond with them in a way that you wouldn't ordinarily bond with other people, and in a way, you know, being part of a collaborative process is it's not a war in the sense that you're not putting your life at risk, but you are, um, you know, uh, you are spending a lot of time working on this project in collaboration with a bunch of other people, and uh, and you're in it together. You that corny phrase, we're all in this together. It actually is true. In this case, when you're working on a creative project with a bunch of other people. So that was something that I thought was moving and compelling about the documentary. Uh, but it mostly involved seeing the crew, hard at work, seeing the members of the cast, really invested in their characters and where things were going, and the excitement that was generated, uh, and also the awareness that this was the last time they were going to be together doing this stuff, and so when it came to an end, when it was the wrap, when it was these particular actors' final scene, then there was like a celebration of it, but there was also the pathos of it, of the, oh, we'll never have this back again, but we'll always have this in our past, just like Humphrey Bogart says, we'll always have Paris. Same kind of notion. So 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 that stuff is interesting and worth seeing about the documentary, if you're interested in Stranger Things. But uh, but the Duffer Brothers just seemed like such dim bulbs that they just did not impress. Um, and so I sort of second guessed myself. I thought to myself, what did these guys just stumble on something that was good, that was fun to watch for 4 seasons, and then in the fifth season things got kind of out of hand, and you know they didn't stick the landing. Um, but did they ever have it going on, really? Like, they just didn't impress me. And if you were a viewer, they don't impress you. They don't seem like they're really in the, like it's like no one is captaining the ship. It's, these two men are supposed to be the captains, the co-captains of this ship, and you just don't see very much out of them. So so then that made me wonder, why is Netflix review? Is it just an accident that Netflix is revealing that they didn't know what they hadn't written the script? They had 3 years between season 4 and season 5. They hadn't written the script yet. They weren't really. They said something like, "Well, we were never really into being writers. We wanted to be directors. We thought writing was the best way to get our foot in the door." But now, like what were they doing between 2022 and 2025? They had plenty of time to work this out, and it just it's the same kind of thing you saw going with the Star Wars sequel trilogy, where it became obvious they didn't have any kind of through line. There was no notion of, we'll do this in this episode and this, and then it will continue here, and then we'll conclude it this way. There was no. It was just like they made the first movie and then brought in a different director who just subverted expectations in The Last Jedi and fucked everything up, and turned and alienated all the fans. Some of the fans were already alienated. I was like me. I was never into any of it. I wasn't into any of the sequel trilogy movies, but anyhow, you had the same kind of feeling that they were just haphazardly going about doing the stuff, and they didn't really know what they were doing. And did they ever really know what they were doing? That's I guess the question that I would have. Like, were they ever aware of what they had? You watched season 1 of Stranger Things. I think this is really inventive television. This is a really inventive storytelling, filmic storytelling, let's say. And the episode, the seasons that followed that never quite had the same charm as the first season. And it got a little bit too big and became this sensation, but it still was fun. It still was fun and inventive and involving enough to, as I said, get me to watch. And part of it was the 80s nostalgia. Part of it was, the main characters, the boys, the 4 young boys were like my age. Exactly, growing up, and I didn't play D&D, that much, but I played it a little bit, and I remember riding bikes, and the whole thing is filmed in the Atlanta area, which is where I grew up. It's set in Hawkins, Indiana, but it doesn't look anything like Indiana. If you've ever been to Indiana, it doesn't look anything like Indiana looks like. It definitely looks like it looks like the part of Georgia in and around Atlanta, which was very familiar to me. So there were lots of reasons that it was involving up to that point, but now it's like I'm left with this question in my mind as to, like, if conformity gate is true. If it really is true that they hid all this stuff. They put all these messages, all these Easter eggs, into these final episodes that let you know, if you were paying attention, that this was not the happy ending that you thought it was. And then you see the guys who are supposed to be these geniuses doing this stuff, and they just don't look like they know what they're doing. So was this all accidental? When the woman at the graduation was holding up a yellow sign that had nothing on it, was that just accidental? You know, when their graduation robes are orange, that's not a typical graduation color at all, and it makes you think of prisoners in jail. And all the other stuff, all the other things you could name off, like Will saying that, I remember getting lost in the woods, and I remember getting our milkshakes at whatever place, and he never got milk. They never got milkshakes at that place, and him getting lost in the woods was when he got kidnapped in season 1, and so all of this stuff, which suggested that maybe, he was speaking Vecna's mind instead of his own. And the checkerboard pattern of the floor, always the ubiquitous checkerboard pattern, and people sitting with their hands in their laps, the way that Vecna would, the posture that Vecna had. All of these things, you could watch any Conformity Gate video where they talk about this stuff. And it just seemed like this is a brilliant, esoteric kind of a, meaning or secret meaning to the end of this story. But then you see these supposed geniuses who are doing this, and they just look like, they don't look like they know what the hell they're doing. They look completely overwhelmed. They look like they don't want to be there. They don't look like they're enjoying themselves. They don't look like they're very involved with the work. They look like they've been dragged into having to do this. Like, oh, it must be really hard, guys. Getting millions and millions of dollars and making the biggest show in the world right now. It must be like you can't rise to the occasion. It just looked like they weren't feeling it, and that's just kind of crazy to me. And so I'm left with a quite big question mark about the whole Conspiracy Gate thing, because from what I saw of the makers of this show, the Duffer brothers, I didn't see creative geniuses at work. I didn't, I maybe they were in seasons past. They just looked completely uninspired and like they didn't want to be there. In spite of all the excitement that surrounded them, in spite of having a cast and crew who were so devoted to the show, and who are so excited to be there. I just don't know what to think. I don't know what to think. I still would like to believe the conspiracy theory, have I said conspiracy theory before? The Conformity Gate theory, just because it's more satisfying to see those kinds of subtext in the show, given that what we're actually left with is kind of underwhelming. Even though I responded positively to it that night, I think I was maybe I think I was seeing it more charitably. I was under a certain kind of spell. of being a part of this thing, and being New Year's Eve, and I was just sort of, in the mood to I was just here I am now, entertain me. I wasn't that, I didn't really have my thinking cap on. I wasn't discerning things that closely. So I don't know. And I don't know if anybody else knows either, but those are my final thoughts on this whole season 5, what many are calling debacle, uh, and the final debacle being the making of documentary, which really seemed to exist just to rip the mask off, and show the Duffer Brothers as that, for the hacks that they are, or that they've become anyway. So, so I don't know. I'll just end it there.